kind of like a little unit review over what we've covered so far. Some of this may seem really easy to you, and if it does, great. That means you have a really, really good understanding of what's going on in Unit 2. And some of you might feel like you really needed this review. Okay, so just a little bit of vocabulary review. Domain is all of our possible input values, or it's all the X values. We can also call it the independent variable. Okay, and then range is all of our possible Y values. We can also call it our output values, or we can call it our dependent values. And then an interval. So if we talk about an interval, like interval notation or inequalities, give us an interval. So that's basically all of the values between 2 points or 2 numbers. So let's just practice locating a couple of values. So yesterday and Tuesday, we talked about how to find the domain and range from a graph. And so when we find domain and range from a graph, the domain is X values, and our X-axis goes left and right. So we want to find the farthest left variable and the farthest right. Okay. So the domain for this particular function would be 2 and 4. And yesterday we talked about the method where you can draw a box around your graph if that's helpful to you. So feel free to do that. Obviously, your vertical lines of your box would go here, and it would kind of look like this. Sorry, my lines are totally not straight. Okay, so our smallest value is -2. Our largest value is 4. So these have endpoints on the end. They're closed circles. So our function is continuous. If I start on the far left and move up and back down, it's continuous, meaning there's no breaks in it, and every value between -2 and 4 is included. Our range is where we look at the top and the bottom. Okay, so we look at the smallest and the largest Y values. So we've got -6 and 3. So we stop down here, our 2 endpoints stop at -6. And then our function goes all the way up to 3, and then it comes back down. So our range would be all the values for Y that are between -6 and 3. Questions about any of that? Okay. So what I'm going to do now, these did not really transfer super well, obviously. All right. So I want you guys to write for me. You're going to tell me what is the domain of this graph. Yeah, that's okay, Mia. I know you can't type the right symbols. That's totally fine. Yeah, so our domain here, our smallest value, we have this endpoint here and the endpoint here. So we come straight down, and the smallest value is going to be -1. Our largest value is going to be 5. All right, so now let's do the range. What would the range be? Good, good, exactly. So the lowest value is -4. Good job, guys. The highest value is 5. Excellent. All right, so the difference from that graph to this graph is going to be our endpoints. So when our endpoints are arrows, that means that they are continuous. Okay, and so our domain is going to be all real numbers. Okay, our range here, since this graph continues on, it's going to go to negative infinity. Okay, so we just need to know the one highest or the maximum value of this one. So we want the range, we're going to write it as the y values, every y value that's less than 4 or equal to. Okay, so we're not really going to have that inequality in this one, only because we just don't need to write that it goes to negative infinity. It can be any number less than or equal to 4. So let's talk about this one. Sorry, these are supposed to be, obviously these boxes should be over the numbers. All right, so why don't you tell me the domain for this one? I don't think I can move them, of course not. Check our endpoints here. Good, all real numbers, excellent. And what would our range be? Okay, so we have our lowest value, which is right here at -1, right? So it's going to be -1 and then any number bigger than -1. So we want the y values that are greater than or equal to -1. Good. All right. So why don't y'all tell me what is our domain and what is our range? All real numbers, good, because of our endpoints, very good. Let me find my little writing board here. Here it is. Okay. What about our range? What do you think for our range? Okay, exactly. So, guys, remember that range isn't just one number, right? It has to be an interval. So I know what you're saying when you say that range is 0. you mean that the range is all numbers greater than 0. Yeah, so 0 and up or anything more than 0. So we're going to write it as y is greater than or equal to 0. So if it asks you for the range, it's most likely asking you for some sort of inequality or interval, okay, not just one number. All right, so can you, for this one, state the domain and range using words? So I want you to say the domain is, and then type it out in words, and then say the range is all values that are blah, blah, blah. So let's try to type it out in a sentence. Domain is all real numbers, exactly. Yeah, or you can put infinite, that's fine. Domain is all real numbers, so let's type that out. The domain is all real numbers. Okay. And then the range. So Sarah, I totally get what you're saying. Just be careful because remember range. You're right. That is the highest point, but range is the y value. So you listed 3, which is our x value at that point. But remember, we want to list the y value for range. Range is all numbers, but then less than or equal to 0. Yes. So our highest value for y that we get up to right here is 0. And then it continues on to negative infinity and to negative infinity. All right, I want to do a quick poll here. We have a few, like I have this one and then 2 more that we're going to do. So what do you think about this one? All right, so we've got some answers in. So first things first, let's check out our domain. We notice our endpoints are arrows. So that means our domain is all real numbers. So that eliminates option A right off the bat. Next, let's take a look at our range. So I'm going to look for the lowest value, which is like kind of at this green dot, and that would be at 1, 2, 3, -4. Okay, and then my graph, this is the lowest value. So that means my value for y has to be all numbers greater than or equal to 4. So we want y to be bigger than. So B is the correct answer. Some of you chose the next one, and I think you probably just flipped your sign. That says y is less than, and that says y is equal to. Okay. Now, let's talk about this problem. Miss Stevens gives math lessons. She charges $30 per hour. However, she limits her hours to limits herself to 5 hours per week so it doesn't interfere with her grading. Create a table and equation to model the situation. So first things first, let's go ahead and write our equation. Okay, so we can write y, or f of x, equals $30 per hour. So 30 times x. Alrighty. So tell me, what would her domain be? Do you have any restrictions on her domain, which is the numbers we're putting in for x, which is her hours? What is the domain in this situation? Yeah, good. 5 hours per week is her limit. She limits herself to 5 hours per week. So that means our domain, she could work 0 hours per week, right? And she can work all the way up to 5. So now that we have our domain, we're going to plug those numbers in for x. So plug in 0 for x and 5 for x to get our range. So 30 times 0 is 0. 30 times 5 is 150. So Ms. Stevens is working between 0 and 5 hours per week and then earning between 0 and $150 per week. And then here is like the table if you wanted to see that worked out. Okay, so what I would like to do right now is send y'all to go get some work done. So Ben, if you could go log into ClassKick and get your 2.1, 2.6, and then 2.7 homework done, that would be really great. Let's see. Mia, you're all caught up. If you just want to go log into ClassKick and take your quiz, then you will be good to go. You'll have everything done. Shania, let's take a look and see what you can go work on.